On today's Babel, troubleshooting techniques, affirming the consequent.
This is Tech No Babel, your weekly source for church video and graphics news, perspectives, tips, and tricks. And now here's your host, Paul Clifford.
Hi, and welcome again to another episode of Tech No Babel. This is the show where every week I help you with church video and graphic design. My name is Paul Allen Clifford. I'm your host, and I'd love for you to ask your questions, leave your comments, etc. So just do that below the video. Now, since the show started over 10 years ago, it could be that you're listening to the audio version, which is what I started with, and if that's the case, there's no video for you to leave your comment underneath. So how do you do it? You head over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/TNB, short for Tech No Babel, and there you can leave your comment, question, etc. on one of those shows. That's cool. So we've previously discussed different ways to do troubleshooting, and I've also discussed a couple of traps to avoid, and this is yet another one of those. It's called affirming the consequent. Now, you don't need to remember what it's called, you just need to remember what it is, and that is a mistake that you can make in your troubleshooting that'll lead you down a bad path that just won't help you whatsoever. So let me give you an example of affirming the consequent. If the power doesn't work, the gear won't work. The gear doesn't work, so therefore the power must not be working. Is it true that if the gear doesn't work, if the power doesn't work, the gear won't work? Absolutely true. If you have gear that's run by electricity and there's no electricity, it won't so much work. So that's true. Is it also true, though, that if the gear doesn't work, we can backwards look at it and say, oh, the cause must be that there is no electricity? No, actually we can't. And that's because doesn't work could have a bunch of causes. It could be, yeah, electricity works fine, I just didn't turn it on. Could be, well, the thing's broken. Could be a million possibilities. So when it comes to affirming the consequent, what it is basically having a general conclusion and trying to go back from a general conclusion to a very specific cause. Let me give you another example. This is one that happened to me, and it's happened a few times, so I would think that I would learn my lesson. So I have 3 XLR cables that I use for various reasons, and one of them failed. But I didn't know that at the time. I just knew that I record a show and go to edit it, and there is no audio there. Okay? So if I have the microphone on, and if the battery is starting to die, therefore the sound wouldn't work. Well, the sound wasn't working, the microphone was on, those two things are true, so therefore it must be that the battery was starting to die, so I replaced the battery. Didn't fix it at all. Not even a little bit. So that's kind of one of the situations where you have multiple possible causes, but instead you choose a specific cause and decide that that's it. So what I actually found out was that these XLR cables, for me, here's my mic, for me unplugging and plugging it back in, I'd get a little short right there at the connector. So not a hard fix. The one I'm using right now has a lifetime warranty, so it's even an easier fix. I just take it back to Guitar Center, which I know they're not the most ideal audio place, but in my town, a place with a lifetime warranty on an XLR cable, I'm going with that, just to save myself the trouble of resoldering, which I have to do with my 2 older cables, which I'll use as backups. So, all that to say, when it comes to troubleshooting, be careful that you don't go from something that has multiple possible causes to thinking, well, this is the cause I suspect, so it's got to be that. No, it doesn't have to be that. There are probably possible causes that you're unaware of. In the case of my microphone, I have control over the battery, I have control over the cable, but it could be the electronics inside have started to fail. It could be that the soundboard that I'm plugged into has started to fail. It could be a million possible things that have caused this not to work. All things being equal, it might tend to be the battery or the XLR cable, but I don't know that until I've troubleshooted. So it's absolutely the case that you should, anytime you're coming up with possible solutions, possible causes rather, of a failure, you should try and think of every possible cause and eliminate them one at a time. Is there a reason that that can't be the case? So going back to our electricity example, if the electricity doesn't work, the gear won't work. The gear doesn't work? Does it make any sense that the electricity isn't working? Well, you look around and other things are lit up. They've got lights that are normally caused by electricity. So that doesn't seem likely. You also think, wait, the piece of gear that doesn't work right now, it has lights on it. So it's getting electricity. Now, that brings it down to, is it getting enough for the right kind of electricity? Or is it something else that's the cause? But you can't deduce from that that the electricity isn't on altogether, because it is. This happened a few years ago where we had an electrical problem in our neighborhood. We don't often get brownouts, so I really hadn't seen one before. But I opened up the refrigerator door and the light in the refrigerator was dim. I turned on the lights in other parts of the house and the lights were dim. And then I noticed that the TV wouldn't turn on. Other things just wouldn't work. Now, this was a few years ago when I had a CRT TV, so it required more power than what my current television does. So, you could be having a brownout situation if you've got gear that's not working. So you need to test that. So, affirming the consequent comes down to too quickly eliminating other possibilities and just concentrating on one, where you have a problem that could have multiple causes and you've decided there's one cause. So a classic example is, well, just imagine this. I have a teenage daughter. I've mentioned her before. Her name is actually Trinity. You might guess where I got the website name. So if my teenage daughter hadn't eaten anything recently, she would be grumpy. That makes sense. She's grumpy. So therefore, she hasn't eaten anything. That's an affirming the consequent kind of mistake. So instead, I can ask her, have you eaten anything recently? She'd say, yes. Okay. How well did you sleep last night? Another possible reason that she's grumpy. I didn't sleep well at all. I only slept 3 hours. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, now you've found something that is more likely to be the cause. Now, it might not be the root cause. We discussed that earlier. It could be that there are other causes that are causing her not to get enough sleep and therefore be grumpy, but at least it gets you down the road. So think about that when you're troubleshooting. Think, okay, I've got a general problem. How can I make it more specific? How can I list out all the possible causes that I know? How can I eliminate these possible causes and not just hop on the first possible cause and say, well, that clearly has to be it, because if that was going on, it would cause this same problem. And finally, look for more and more and more evidence to see which possible solution best fits the actual outcome. And I think that will help you in your troubleshooting. If you like this video, you'd like my email newsletter, so by all means head over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/gifts, GIFTS, and pick up your church tech gift along with the free subscription to my email newsletter. Head over to my store as well. That's at trinitydigitalmedia.com/store, and you can pick up some fun church tech things there. Or one of my personal favorites is a subscription to my Church Tech University, which is a low-cost way of getting all of those items at once, along with a community where we can discuss church tech problems you have, ideas that you have that you just don't know how to implement, etc. Something made specifically for you. Something I wish that I'd had when I started doing church tech 15 years ago. Until next time, this is Paul Allen Clifford with TrinityDigitalMedia.com. Go out and change eternity.